Well, I do remember the time you told the New York Times, I won. You did describe it as a stolen election. The courts did side with the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and some of the challenges as well.
Caitlin, that's actually incorrect. And normally I wouldn't cut you off, but you're repeating disinformation. What the court said, if you read the entire opinion, was that despite the flaws in the process that we acknowledge, that the courts acknowledge, they were no longer permitted to complete and fix them. They could not correct the mistakes because the law had changed between 2018 and 2022 when the case was finally adjudicated. There was never a moment where they said what happened was right. What they said was there was no capacity to correct the mistakes. And so it's important that we not only use the headlines, but we read the fine print, because that's where the mistakes are made. That's where the challenges are. I believed then, and I believe now, I have never been the governor of Georgia. I have never claimed to be the governor of Georgia. What I have said is that voters were denied their full rights. Courts agreed with me in the time of that election. They agreed with me post-election. The state made changes to the flaws, some of them. Unfortunately, too many of them have been restored in different ways, and we continue to face voter suppression, not only in Georgia, but around the country, because Republicans are using the ability to change the laws because we no longer have the protection of the Voting Rights Act to make it harder for average voters to show up at the polls and have their votes counted. That should be that should be where our focus is. That should be where our attention is. And anyone who tries to distract us from that is not doing the work of protecting democracy in America.
I am not a fan of CNN, and that clip shows exactly why. For Kaitlin Collins to conflate Stacey Abrams' very real criticisms of the voter suppression that happens in Georgia because of the Republicans who run those elections in that state, to try to conflate that with Donald Trump's attacks on our democracy, both on January 6th and the days leading up to it, when him and his stooges tried to push false slates of electors to overturn the will of millions of Americans, and conflate it with things that Carrie Lake has said in Arizona, saying that she is the rightful governor. I find it absolutely ridiculous, and I'm so glad that Stacey Abrams called out Kaitlin Collins on TV, because what a ridiculous claim to make, especially right now in a time when Donald Trump is still talking about the ways that he does not think even this upcoming election, which we are months out from, will be legitimate. Donald Trump, who spends every second he can trying to cast doubt on the upcoming election and the election in 2020, trying to claim that President Biden still is an illegitimate president. I cannot believe Kaitlin Collins would do that. And I think now especially is an important time to remind everyone of the things that Donald Trump is saying, the doubt that he's trying to cast on this upcoming election. And Rachel Maddow does a great job of breaking that down. And so I want to play this incredible clip from her show.
You probably heard this weekend that Donald Trump told an audience on Friday night that if they vote for him this November, if he's voted back into office this November, they will never have to vote again. He told an audience on Friday to, quote, get out and vote just this time. He said after this time, quote, you won't have to do it anymore. You won't have to vote anymore. He said, quote, in 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good, and you're not going to have to vote. Now, this is not the first time Trump has told a campaign audience that they will never have to vote again once they vote him back in this time. And that is as alarming as it sounds for all the reasons that you immediately think it is, right? I mean, he's positing this like this is a happy thing. Oh, joy, never having the burden of voting again, right? The point of democracy is that we vote all the time, and we like it. That's how we decide what happens in our country. He's promising his followers that he'll end all of that. And it's exactly what you think it is. But let me also point out something more strange, which has been happening at the same time and hasn't had as much attention. The day before Trump made those remarks on Friday he said, you're never going to have to vote again after you vote for me this one time. The day before that, on Thursday last week, he didn't say that people wouldn't have to vote anymore once he was elected this November. No, the day before that, on Thursday, he told his supporters, not that they're not going to have to vote again, but that they don't have to vote this time, that they don't need to vote for him this November.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes. He said that on Thursday last week. And it turns out this is something, when you look, he says this all the time now. Watch.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes.
We don't need votes. I tell my people, I don't need any votes. We got all the votes we need. I don't need votes. We don't need votes. We got more votes than anybody's ever had. You don't have to vote. Don't worry about voting. The voting, we got plenty of votes.
Don't worry about voting. Of all the weirdness around this campaign, this is a truly strange thing to tell people, right? Don't vote. I don't need your vote. I don't want your vote. I mean, all the surface level weirdness is, worth noting. Having a new position on literally anything you can think of as soon as any random rich guy tells you to, that's a weird thing. Picking the eccentric billionaire's intern for your running mate, even though you apparently had no idea who he was or what a disaster he is on television, all of this is weird. But telling voters, do not bother to vote for me, it doesn't matter if you do, I don't need your votes. That is a thing that should prick up your ears. Because what that means is that he doesn't think he needs to win the vote to win the election. He doesn't think he needs to win the election in order to take power. He thinks something other than votes is going to determine whether or not he gets back in the White House. At Rolling Stone today, they profile 70 different election officials who have been put into position in the swing states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, who are election denialists, committed election denialists, officials that have been put in place in all of those swing states to make sure that election results, no matter what they are, do not get certified in those states this year. Quote, at least 22 of these election officials have already refused or delayed certification processes in recent elections. According to Democratic election lawyer Mark Elias, quote, I think we are going to see mass refusals to certify the election in November. Quote, Republicans are counting on not just that they can disrupt the election in big counties, they're counting on the fact that if they don't certify in several small counties, you can't certify statewide results. 70 officials in place across just the swing states. For all the surface level weird behavior and language and strange choices and incoherence and odd donors in the Republican campaign, the serious core at the heart of it is that they are not planning on the vote being counted as normal. They are not counting on the election results being tallied as normal. They are not counting on the vote. And in fact, Trump is now repeatedly saying the vote will not matter. He doesn't even want your vote. The Republicans are counting on the election results not being certified, thereby creating chaos in Washington around the results. Just like 2020, right? Just like January 6, 2021, except this time with no Mike Pence in the way and with Republican officials already in place in multiple states saying, yeah, you may not get any sort of official vote. The weirdness of this campaign is astonishing 99 days out. The dislocation from real campaigning, though, the dislocation from actually asking people for their votes, that means something. It means they are not trying to win this thing in a normal way. So 99 days out, as Democrats stand up what, by all accounts, looks like a juggernaut traditional campaign under Kamala Harris, are they prepared for this level of weirdness after the votes are cast? Are they ready for what's coming?
I wanted to play that full clip because Rachel Maddow really refocuses what we need to be paying attention to what Donald Trump is saying. He is already telling us what he is going to be doing on November 5th, on Election Day, and the days following. And that is casting doubt on the election. He's not interested in winning. He wants to win a different way. He wants the Supreme Court to give him the election. He wants to be able to call the Secretary of State in any red state and say, I need more votes here, like he did with Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. That is Donald Trump's goal. It clearly seems like Rachel Maddow said, that he doesn't want to win the votes. He wants to win some alternative way, like he tried to in 2020. And that's what we need to be focused on, not like we saw in the beginning of this video, the ridiculous comparison from Kaitlin Collins. No, we need to be thinking about the really, truly, real threat that Donald Trump poses to our democracy, because he's telling us that he is a threat to democracy, not only just saying that he's casting doubts on our elections in the past and our elections in the future, but also because he says he wants to be a dictator on day one. We've played the clip so many times. Sean Hannity tries to get Trump to say that he won't be a dictator, and Trump pushes past him and says, no, I will be a dictator on day one. These are real threats, and when Donald Trump makes them, we should listen. The only time he tells the truth is when he tells a truth that is destructive to him, and that is the truth. He does want to be an authoritarian, and we have to push back against Donald Trump's authoritarian movement, and we are doing that on this show. And if you want to support this show, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, you join what we are building. We are a new channel, but we are growing so incredibly fast, and that is because of your support, viewer, and it really means the world to me. And as always, make sure that if you like this video, you leave a thumbs up, you hit the like button. It really goes a long way in supporting what we're doing if you enjoy these videos, and it would really mean the world to me. And until next time, I'll see you soon.